Hey everyone, this is Erasmus again with SoCal GG. I wanted to make a video that could help out new players in how to not die first in multiplayer. The reason why I wanted to do a video on this concept is because often the reason I hear people not wanting to play multiplayer is because either they've been lurking forever and they're kind of intimidated to get in, or they're new players and they don't want to get destroyed on their first time around, or they're just scared of the idea of there being players and they won't be good enough. I can pretty much guarantee you that if you follow these instructions to the T, then you're 90% likely not going to die super early. So I want to just put these things out here because I think they're extremely important, and I think it would be good to know going into some of these games for some of the players who are thinking of joining the community games that we're going to be hosting. So there's 8 concepts that I want to cover, and I'm going to cover them pretty quick. So hopefully it'll be pretty easy to understand. One is you need to know the game size. And by that I mean the player count and the provinces. It's very important to understand that concept. How many provinces do you have per player? That's one of the most important concepts of starting out in a game. And the reason being is that if you have 20 to 25 provinces, or even this might be even less on here, but as an example, 20 to 25 means your expansion target needs to be 20 to 25. There's a very easy way of counting your provinces, by the way. I like to go into statistics, nation overview, and you can just count them from over here. So in this case we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So if this was a 15 province count multiplayer game, this would actually be okay by about turn 12. Turn 12 is kind of the marker that we like to use for when you should be hitting that province count around. So if you have 20 provinces per player, you should, at this stage of the game, if this is turn 12, you should have 20 of those provinces already picked up, or at least close to that number. If it's 15 provinces per player, you should have those 15 provinces at minimum by turn 12. You might be able to shoot above and below this number, but there's some issues with shooting above and below. If this is a 20 to 25 province count and this is turn 12 for me, this is going to be really difficult, and I'm going to show you why with a really quick illustration on paint. So let's say we carve out a little piece of land here, and then another player carves out this, another player carves out this, another one this. We just start coloring these in to be all of our different things. Beautiful art, I know. Well, we could see that this player is going to be very easy for one of these players to go sneak off and eat, probably faster than either of these players can respond. In fact, I bet you if someone finds out that this player started attacking this player, he's going to join in. And I do that all the time. So it's something to be very careful of, that if you're not reaching that province count, at least roughly in there, you're going to look like an easy target. Now, that being said, this gameplay loop works in the fashion of the more provinces you get, the more income you get. And sorry, you can see these flags, these little candles, these gold symbols. I like to turn that on in here, statistics, oops. map filters, income box, dominions candles. If you take it away, you don't see any of that. Makes it a little harder to see these magic sites, but I love turning this on. Makes it very easy for me early game to see, like I can see these next to me if they're independents. Let's find independence. Like right here. Let's say this was my starting province. I'd maybe decide, do I need resources more, the hammers, or do I need gold more, the income? In any case though, going back to the point, under expansion can make you look small, and it can make you look like you're easy for somebody to just pick up and incorporate into their nation by taking your capital or provinces. And they're really going to want to do that because an early game first war, if you win that, it puts you pretty far ahead of the other players. Other players will want to jump in too. The other thing you don't want to do is you don't want to be too big. If, let's say this is a 5 province count game, and now I've expanded into all of the other nations, and it's easier to illustrate with this concept. This is an extreme example. This guy had, insane expansion, I guess. And now you've got all these little neighbors that are hanging out over here. And they're gonna say, oh my goodness, look at this guy. He is overextended. And they are gonna make a coalition against you. Now, the community has a couple terms for this. They call this term rush bait. They call this term coalition bait. You don't want to be either of these. Being either of these means you're done early. Coalition bait usually lasts a little bit longer unless you have some veteran players in the game. But this is what a natural game state tries to do. And this goes outside of playing Dominions with us too. There's a few other games we like to play that are player versus player. And if you ever recognize that someone's the leader early on, they very rarely win the game unless everyone else is new players and they don't know how to respond. For example, these new players, they might be new and they might be scared. And they'll say, no, I don't want to join the coalition because he's big. And he's going to be like, no, they're big and scary too. I'm going to attack my small neighbor. And then all this doesn't work, and then this yellow player starts going in and dominating all these people. That's what happens in a newer player game, but not in the veteran player games, particularly in their tournament scenes. And it can happen, but it's much less likely to happen because the more experienced players know how to leverage information. They don't get confused when they see these big things or scared. They know what happens when this happens, so they respond to it. Rush bait, you'll often find yourself in this situation when you don't want to be, especially if you have a Hell-blessed nation right next to you. If that's the case, you're going to have to really prepare yourself because they're going to come in really fast. Plenty of nations get taken out turn 14, turn 20, around that during this stage. Coalition bait generally happens turn 20 to turn 30. Okay, cool. So on to the next concept I want to talk about is nations. Choosing strong nations, weak nations. Let's go ahead and take a look. It's going to vary for all the ages, but I want to just give some examples. There's some nations that are really strong and people know about them in the community. I'd encourage not playing as those, especially if your mix has some veteran players in it, because it actually might be harder than you think. And the reason for that is these players, when they're in their expansion phase, this is getting a little bit crowded now. Let's do a new one. During this expansion phase, let's say everything's ideal and everybody is kind of similar size, right? There we go. Everybody's kind of in the same ballpark, right? Well, if you have players that kind of have some knowledge of the game, there's only one difference between all these different nations, and that's who everyone thinks is the biggest threat to themselves. And that's who's going to get teamed up on first, or who's going to get attacked first. Let's say this is a big scary nation, and nobody else wants them to reach the mid game because they know they turn on hard. A few of these in the middle age that are pretty notorious for that, at least from my end, this varies from people to people, is let's go with Scalaria. That's a pretty scary one. And this kind of works for a lot of death nations in general for different reasons. It's hard to be a friendly neighbor with a death nation because they spread death. I think. So we have Dominion that kills population. And often these guys are tough to be neighbors with. So some of these higher tier nations, stronger nations, as well as some of these more threatening nations, how scary you are, might not be the best idea for a new player in a larger game. But let's say you're in a smaller game. You only have something like this many players. Well, it totally changes in this regard, right? Because you might have someone who's a strong nation over here. These guys aren't the strong nations. Well, they can gang up on you, but there's likely a lot more going on for everyone to just entirely focus on you in the beginning. But the more players you have surrounding you, the more they're gonna watch videos about, oh, these are some of the strong nations. Oh, Nazca, that's another one that gets a lot of hate early. So you gotta watch out if you're going as one of those, because some people already have watched videos on what are the strong nations, and they might try to convince others to team up on you because you're strong. If these players are new though and don't recognize any of this, then obviously it doesn't make a very big difference. Another thing to keep in mind is terrain requirements and tall versus wide nations. Do you need to get a particular terrain? I know there's a few of these here. Ind has some pretty intense ones where, look at all these different terrain types they need for producing different types of units. So that can sometimes force you to have to pick a spot on the map. And you do run the risk of creating stubbornness with yourself when you have to achieve those goals. And I'm going to touch on that a little later. Let's see, I think I was in here. Oops. Okay. So back to these concepts. This is concept 3, which I touched on a bit already, and that's player experience. You're going to have a lot of levels of experience, and as I showed, it could really change what these are going to be. Like I said earlier, if you have a bunch of new players and you go as a strong nation, or if you have a bunch of new players and you steamrolled the beginning, like you snowballed everything and you took all these provinces, they might not understand the game enough to know how to respond to you. But against good players, it's a very bad idea. You're going to be a coalition target early. I've seen that happen a lot now, and honestly, my mentality before was to expand, but I don't think that's really going to fly in some of these larger player games. I'm going to get hated on for that kind of behavior, and rightfully so. You don't want to accidentally expand into somebody's cap circle in the beginning of the game unless you're ready for a fight. By cap circle, I mean, see my capital here? We've got these 5 provinces around it. That's the cap circle. If you take something in someone's cap circle, they're going to either be really angry or fight you. So if you're expanding in the beginning blindly, and you think, oh, maybe I should get this one, it's next to his capital though, only do that if you're ready to make an enemy. And you're going to have that enemy until that's gone. Even 2 provinces from a capital is often a contentious point. And I'm going to get on that in just a second. So point 4 is expansion, being too small versus too big. We went over that. But one part we didn't go on is being too greedy. That's a term that seems pretty popular in the community. And what it refers to is skimping out or using the minimum and trying to get the most out of it, whether it be in the long run or the short run. For example, let's say I want to attack these guys, and I try to do it with only this, right? I mean, I might be able to get away with it by the skin of my teeth, but that's really being greedy there. If this was in our expansion phase before turn 12, and we're like, can we get one more push out of this guy? I used to lean on getting one more push out of him, but I've seen now enough players go down to where if you lose this during expansion, your core army is going to be missing those units. And when you've overextended just slightly so, even though that one more province is going to feel nice and good, the income you're going to get from that one province, you can see here how much you get for each province. You're going to think it's going to pay off, but diplomatically there could be some repercussions, as well as militarily, because that's one less group you're not going to have to be able to potentially defend your borders. I know you're not thinking this is a lot, but when you combine this with province defense by right-clicking and pressing D, let me show you a new one. Oh, these ones are really cranked up. Jeez, what was I doing here? There's one. To look at province defense, we right-click, click D. See there's 0 here. We could push this up. Now if we had something like this, and we had this group come defend it, well, he can't reach it, but if he were able to reach it, that might be able to hold off a fairly decent army. It's very common to mix mages into little pockets like this. Maybe sneak a gem or 2, give them a good spell. Let's see if there's anything cool on here. These are kind of whatever. Maybe is the Earth 2? No, it's just Earth 1. Anyways, though, you can put some stuff on these guys so they could at least help out. He's not going to cast anything crazy, but if there's a thug here or something scary that might be attacking this province, having just this guy here to hit someone with a magic spell could be the difference of killing it or not. Because maybe the rest of your guys just can't do anything to it. Like magma bolts. Maybe that will do something. Okay. So moving on with this concept. you don't want to push beyond your means. Because if you start taking attrition, and attrition means losing troops as you expand, let's just see what happens to them. If you start losing all your troops while you expand, that's going to add up after a while. And a lot of players might start attacking you early. In this case, they all die. Let's say half of them got away. Well, it's now half size. And as you add that up in the course of 12 turns, it's going to really pile up to how strong your army's going to be. So you don't want to push that too much, because if you start taking attrition, you're going to start running into this. This player here, who's watching you, is going to start seeing that your armies are getting hurt. They're getting hit. They're taking attrition. Let's say he watches you get in a fight over here with one of his scouts, and you lose 50% of that force. And then you're in another fight over here. And this time, this player sees it, and then they start talking. You're pretty much dead. So that's something you've really got to watch out for, and is honestly, in my opinion, the biggest difference between the more veteran players and the not so veteran players is they know what's happening to them. And they can leverage that information to make themselves stronger. New players might not know what's going on here, or they might see your battle report and they might just be like, haha. And then they'll do their own overexpanding and stuff will die, or underexpanding. And then, you know, because they're underexpanding, maybe you would have had way more than them. Now you'd be a more even fight. So expanding further works a little bit better in newer player games than not expanding at all. But in more veteran player games, taking attrition is just as bad as, maybe not quite as bad. No, it is really bad to suffer a lot of attrition during your expansion phase, because they'll hit you very quick. The next concept I want to talk about is diplomacy. Diplomacy is extremely important. I recommend you either send a message to someone on Discord when you've found where they are. You don't even need to know where their capital is exactly, but if you see their force right here, oh hey, what are you guys doing here? All these Vetis. Maybe it's time to send them a message. I recommend sending messages on Discord to the other players, but I recommend making formal agreements via text. And there's a few reasons for that. I'm not going to get into that this time, but I'm just going to say politics is very important. And it's very important not to come off the wrong way. And I see a lot of, even veteran players do this. They come off too scary. And even as a new player, you can come off scary too, but it's not to your benefit to come off as scary. It's to your benefit to come off as strong. And there's a difference between the two. Scary might be saying something along the lines of, let's say you bump into Jotunheim for the first time. And the first message they send to you is, hey, I saw your Bless and your Pretender, and it looks pretty weak. I also noticed your armies are nothing very thrilling. How's it going? And players will do that, and a lot of even veteran players will think it's, I don't know, cool or edgy to do that, but really you're putting a big target on your back when you're making comments like that, because you're not coming off as strong, you're coming off as scary. Versus if Jotunheim has a big army in here and just simply says, hey, what's your border phase looking like? Do you want to or these Anakites roll up? That's never a good thing to see. And they ask you about, hey, how's your expansion phase going? Or, hi, Bogaris, I'm gonna kill you. No, that'd be the opposite, but that's how I feel whenever I see something like that. So you don't want to come off as scary, even as these guys, because if you come off as scary, Bogaris is gonna bounce around trying to see who's out here to team up, and they're gonna be a coalition target because they're gonna be a jerk. Versus if they rolled up here, they're cordial and not trying to be threatening. Maybe you could reach an agreement, or maybe they can just decide to kill you, but it's not going to get your alarm bells triggered. Another thing with diplomacy is called a NAP, N-A-P. That means non-aggression pact. I personally think NAPs are useful. They grant you security on a border where you won't have to commit as many forces. So let's see this army rolled up. If I saw this army here, I wouldn't start talking about naps. I'd start reaching out and saying, what's going on here? Because if you ask for a nap when this sort of thing pulls up, they're going to think you're scared, and they might think, oh, this might be a good time to hit them. But with Jotunheim here, if I saw some guys pulling up, they're finishing their expansion. You know, it's not within my cap circle. Or even 2 within my cap circle. I might reach out and tell them, hey, how's it going, Jotunheim? Anything cool happening? Found any neighbors? I found a neighbor down here. Might want to be careful talking about neighbors because others might try to reach out to them too. But usually you can be pretty cordial with neighbors, especially when you first meet them. Just be careful if you see something like this pull up, and be careful if no one's saying anything. I want to put extra emphasis on diplomacy because when you hear nothing from a nation, not only does it mean you don't know their intentions and there's a big scary army, but also maybe you can't communicate with them. Maybe they're not good communicators, and that means it might not be a good relationship in the long term. That could be an incorrect assumption, but this is for the newer players who tend to be too quiet and not reach out to neighbors. I don't recommend that because other people are going to view that as either you're threatening or not very good at communication. Sharing info is good, but just watch how much you share. There's a lot that goes on of oversharing, especially sharing an early idea of a coalition. If you don't really have a good reason to go into a coalition with someone, don't make that suggestion early. But when you're ready to move, especially if you could beat them in speed into the fight, bring up the coalition and say this is gonna happen really soon, and you'd like them to join it. Just be very careful. If you do this too early when you do not appear prepared, they're going to be scouting your provinces and they're going to know you're not prepared. And the coalition's going to turn against you. They'll both pin into this territory and attack, maybe even before you are ready to do your attack. And that'd be a smart move if you were the leading player right now, for them to team up on you. It's always recommended to team up on the strongest player of the group. You have the most to gain, and you're not creating as much of a problem if your ally acquires that territory too. It's preventing that snowballing action going on. Eating up a small neighbor might sound easier, and it can be hard to judge whether you should or shouldn't eat a small neighbor because you might be weary of their experience level. Maybe they're a bad player and you're like, oh, they're not, I may as well take their stuff anyways because they're no use in this war. It's all stuff you got to consider. Might be good teaming up with even the bigger guy if that's the case, but you got to make sure you get it before they do. But I do recommend teaming up on the bigger player. The other thing I want to go over, this is 6 in this, is projected strength, and this is incredibly important. And this goes into not taking attrition during your expansion phase. You need to maintain projected strength. And what is that? That's your ability to not appear weak. Not only is it not appearing weak, but it's also not being weak. If you spent too much of those first 12 turns getting researchers or building forts, your projected strength is going to tank, and people are going to notice, and they're going to think, oh, lovely, there's all these forts, I'm going to go take them. Or, oh, they must be researching a lot, they have really high scales, I should probably attack them because they're going to be a problem later in the game. They're doing a late game build, research and scales. So keeping that projected strength really keeps away those opportunists. And those opportunists are going to ask for coalitions. They're going to ask who they want to team up with. Everyone's thinking it. Don't think they're not. And you want to look strong enough, and you want to be strong enough that you could defend yourself in the case of an emergency like that. Having units to be able to fill your front line, very useful. And they don't have to be right on the border. You don't have to be in their face pissing them off. But having them within arm's length, I guarantee you your opponents have scouts there and they can see what's going on. And they're thinking, no, this is a bad idea. That's what you want them to think. Attacking him, it's a bad idea. Even for a defensive nation. And that's why I recommend, and this goes back to province count. If you're at a 15 province count, I don't recommend trying to shoot for more than 2 forts you build within the first 16 turns. On a 20 to 25 province map, 3 or 4 can be reasonable. But still, push out those forts just a tiny bit later. It's going to make a big difference that you have that early army ready. Otherwise, you're going to go looking like that previous one we had, which was Rushmate. And I'll just illustrate this here really quick. That kind of sucked to be this player. Let's suggest it's a full wraparound map. If you see that this player over here has just finished building 3 forts, and he only has 1 army in this corner, and both of these players, they only have 1 fort, but they have a lot of armies. What do you think they're going to want to do with all those armies? They're going to want to get your forts. And if they're scouting that out, they're going to see that, and they're going to know that 600 gold did not go into making this. So it better have gone into making a Hellbless. And if it's not into a Hellbless, you're pretty much done for. They're going to go charging straight in, and they're going to kill you. And that's another thing you need to watch out for. And this goes into our next point. Greed management. I call it greed management because we're all greedy with certain things. We're all trying to hit our crazy research targets. Oh, I need Wrath of Pazuzu. I can't play without it. Or, oh, I need all these forts super early because I need these starets and they research good and they're such good mages and I can start searching. You need to manage that behavior. You need to get your projected force first and then start building those concepts that are going to go into the mid and late game. If you take too much attrition, if you have too many early forts, too many researchers, and this is another one with greed, is research and territorial rigidity. What I mean by that is not being flexible. For example, let's say this is my capital. And I know this is deep in Jotunheim territory, but I needed that forest. If I don't get this forest for my build, I'm going to freak out and I'm going to fight someone to the death. Well, you're going to die. So a part of greed management is not getting caught in those rigid routines. And it's very easy to do as this nation, Bogaris. It's very easy to say we have a lot of mages, and therefore I want to hit, something crazy up here. I want to start summoning vampires, Curse of Blood. So I'm just recruiting mages, blitzing to this. My nation doesn't work without it. I can't do anything without it, which is a lie to myself. You're going to ruin your flexibility, and you are going to turn yourself into this. So try to avoid that. You'll get that forest. You'll get those research targets if you have the appropriate projected strength to survive. But you can't just sit there and wait for people to not notice you missing things. Another part of greed management is hostile and cheeky expansion. We all have the opportunity to screw someone over at some point. Don't press your luck too much with that. If, let's say, Jotunheim moved here, you have no reason to be bad neighbors with them, and I know they were going there, and I sent my force in, I say, oops. No one thinks it's an accident. No one's going to believe that oops. And the thing is, when it comes to oops or cheeky behavior or hostile expansion during the expansion phase, like before turn 12, if you're not a Hellblessed rusher or you have been cranking out just piles of units, don't do that move unless you are ready to kill that player, because you are going to be the first coalition target in their head. They're going to do whatever they can to make sure their other neighbor can get rid of Mr. Unreasonable. So you don't want to become a coalition dogpile because you burned some bridges diplomatically early. Sure, it might win you a province for now, but it's just made an enemy for later. The last one I want to talk about is stubbornness, and it went into greed management as well because they are very related to each other. Refusing to cut losses. So when you're losing a war, it's very easy to say, okay, well, this guy took half my stuff, right? Well, I can't play the game with half this stuff, so I'm gonna keep fighting him. You just took your stuff, okay, well, he's gonna keep taking more. That relationship's not gonna stop. And maybe you're upset that you didn't win that war. But you can play out of these situations, and you could diplomatically reach out to someone else. You could reach a peace agreement despite losing some provinces, and you can cut your losses. If you think they're going to take this, you can burn these forts down. You can destroy them before they take it. And sure, they're gonna win this battle right here, right? But you just burned those, and now everyone just saw them expand. Well, guess what? They're big. You're asking for some help diplomatically. Maybe you managed to get them off your back. It'd be bad having 2-on-1. But when people see a player getting eaten alive like that, if they're smart, they might recognize an opportunity to pile on the number 1 player. And you actually might be able to get your land back, maybe not the forts you just burnt down, but you might be back in the game. So don't refuse to cut bosses. And it's sort of a fixation or idealization that comes out of also wanting vengeance. If you go chasing revenge against this player, sure, you might cause problems, but really you got to think, is your long-term survival actually going to maybe change the fact that this person's winning, or is trying to fight with whatever leftover remains against this horde going to do any good? So cut your losses when you're getting your butt kicked by a player that's beating you. Don't tell yourself, oh, without those forts everything's over, and I'm gonna basically toss in the towel and throw myself at that player. There's a lot to be learned by being in this position, and why a lot of players often like to sub for players in dire situations, because this is when you can really learn the most. So that's everything. I hope this is going to help out with getting some people more involved in multiplayer. If you follow those steps, you're going to do better than the average player. Now, it's not going to help you in the mid game and the late game so much, but this is going to get you off your feet, so you're going to have that 90% chance of getting to play this game, and not from before where if you messed up all these, you've got like a 20% chance of making it past turn 20. So thanks for watching, you guys. This is Erasmus with SoCal GG. Feel free to join our Discord too. It's SOCAL space GG. We have a bunch of other games on there too. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this. See ya.